Hey friends, you're getting the good, the bad, and the ugly today. I'm in my bathrobe because I have been flat on my back since Sunday with the flu. But I couldn't stand it another minute and I had to get up and I wanted to do a video. So many times, even though this entire channel is devoted basically to TDM decks and how to read them, a lot of people will still text me or message me and say, can you give me tips on how to read TDM? And my answer is just watch my videos. Excuse me, in advance. I'm going to cough a lot. And I don't mean that to be a fresh answer, like go watch my videos, but it's true. Because if you watch the videos, I demonstrate how I interpret the cards. Now, you can take you could take what I offer as a grain of salt, take what you like and use it, and disregard what you don't like and do something else. But it's just a rough, well, you know what I'm trying to say. Okay. So one of the things that I do, and you could too, is if you do, especially if you're trying to do a predictive thing. Now, I generally don't approach the universe for predictive readings, but for the outcome of the Super Bowl, I did ask for a predictive reading. I wanted to know who would win the Super Bowl. Now, I've mentioned in advance that none of you should bet any money on that, on my prediction. Although I'm happy to say my prediction was unequivocally correct. Let me show you the cards I pulled. Now, something that threw me was that the Tower card appeared in both this reading for who would win the Super Bowl and also what, whose presence at the Super Bowl would mean to the crowd or to the game. But, they could have been connected or they didn't necessarily have to be. But at any rate, this spread for who would win the Super Bowl began with the Tower card, which suggests calamity or destruction. Now, I don't see, in neither reading, was there the Devil card or was there the Death card. So it didn't seem like maybe it was like super, super dire. But it was concerning. Now, in the context of the question, who was going to win the Super Bowl, and it wasn't about anybody else, I really, in retrospect, should have seen this as a shakeup. A shakeup. We have two batons. I see batons as a social suit, and we have a competition. So we have, in the context of the question, I always interpret my cards in the context of the question. Many people don't. But that's how I narrow down how to answer the question and what meanings of the cards would apply. So a shakeup in context of a game or a competition of fun energy. 6 is a perfect number. I don't see anything wicked or evil in the number 6. 6 is congenial, so that's how I saw it, just energy that's congenial. However, when I did the quintessential card for it, I clearly said, very clearly, the Eagles win. There is a saturation of green in this card, key to the city, and I didn't interpret it as the female pope. I interpreted it in the context of the question. I'm looking for clues. I'm looking for visual clues. And the visual clues in this spread is all the green. And if you'll take note, there isn't a lick of red in any of these cards. Not one. So, in retrospect, in the context of the question, I should have seen this not as being calamity at the game or that something terrible would happen. It's just that there was a shakeup for perhaps the team that was expected to win. I mean, this would have been the 3rd time in a row that the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl, which is no small thing. So they should be given credit for that. So perhaps they were expected to win. And so this was a clue that there would be a shakeup in the competition, friendly energy. But if you're looking for a real clue to who would win, we have the female Pope dressed in green. Now, if I used any other deck and, she was donned in any other color, it might be different. I might have had to reach harder. But when I use cards for interpretation, I use all visual clues. I don't limit myself to just what could the female Pope mean in this context of this question. In the context of the question, green is a legitimate color. Now let me show you the reading. I want to analyze, reinterpret, or re-look at the reading I did the day prior, or a couple days before this one, to see how whose presence would have affected the game. Okay, so we had 2 batons. This is the first card. We had 9 coins, 9 batons facing downward. We had 8 swords. We had the Ace of Batons, and I'll move them up so you can see them. We had the Chariot. We had 4 batons, 7 of Swords facing up, Page of Cups, and then we had Fortitude. So let me scoot these up. The quintessential card for the top row was Judgment. The quintessential card for the middle row was the Tower. And then the quintessential card for the third row was Fortitude. And then for the entire overall, we had Justice. Was it Justice? Darn it. I don't know if it was Justice or if it was, I think it was the Empress. I think it was the Empress. Okay, so let me remove these cards because these 2 cards were not in the original reading. Okay, so remember, the question was, how would whose presence affect the game at the Super Bowl? That was what it was, okay? So let's take a look, and I'm pretty sure it was Justice. Excuse me, I'm pretty sure it was Fortitude. Excuse me. Oh, that's because my brain is kind of numb. I'm pretty sure it was the Empress, so I don't know. We'll just say it was the Empress because I think it was. All right, because I remember talking about looking at her as a position of power and not necessarily as whatever, the female. All right, so here we have competition involving a lot of money, 2 9s. I interpreted this row as meaning at the end of the competition, there will be an announcement. That's what I thought. There would be some type of announcement at the end. I saw 2 9s as meaning the end because 9s mean the end of something. So coins represents money. Batons could, in the context of this question, represent competition, right? So I saw the Judgment card as at the end of the game, there would be some type of an announcement. Now, as far as I know, there was no announcement at the end of the game. There was an announcement before the game because who was on an airplane, and as he flew over the Gulf of Mexico, he declared that it was now named something else. However, I think that happened in the beginning, so I don't think that happened at the end of the game. I don't think that happened on his way back to wherever the hell he was going, excuse my language. I think that happened in the beginning, so I'm not really sure what the Judgment card meant. At the end of the game, there would be some type of an announcement. I don't know what that announcement was, to be honest. Now, we have in the center row, the question, context of the question I'm reading the cards in was, what was his reason for showing up? And from my perspective, his reason for showing up was to upset the game, was to show who's in power. Okay, we have the Empress. It makes sense if it was the Empress, because he wanted to show us who's boss. All right. And if we read the Empress card, not just as female energy, but as a person in a position of power in her own right, we can see, and what I missed the first time is that he wanted to show who was boss. Now, for me, from my perspective, it kind of, his presence kind of ruined the game, or it had the potential for ruining the game. But as it turns out, it really didn't, because he didn't get that much airtime at all. He got some time in the very beginning for a second, and then he got some time when he inappropriately saluted during the National Anthem. And I know some of you will say, well, he's the commander-in-chief, he has the right. Well, unless he's being publicly saluted by, or unless he's being saluted by a, doesn't have to be public, but unless he's being saluted by members of the armed forces or a member of the armed forces, he's got no business saluting anything. And during the National Anthem, he's got no business saluting. I don't know who he's saluting. He's acting like a big shot. He didn't go to West Point, remember? He went to like ROTC in high school, but he didn't go to, West Point, because if you recall, he was dismissed for bone spurs. So at any rate, it was his idea to show who's boss, and he was going to take every opportunity, appropriate or not, to show who's boss. Now, I was a little concerned because the Charioteer, when I described this card as representing our heroes, people who, a friendly game, right? An orderly game, an opportunity for fun, to cheer on our heroes, he was red. But look, in retrospect, the red heroes is followed by Tower. Now, the read wasn't about who's going to win the Super Bowl, but in retrospect, it kind of is clear that the destruction or the shakeup came after the red hero. Could have been, right? I wasn't asking who was going to win the Super Bowl, but it's kind of interesting to me in retrospect to see that the red heroes were shaken down. It's very interesting, but I wasn't asking that question, but it was part of the read, right? It was about the game in general. Now the last row, again, 4 is orderly. So orderly competition. There was nothing disorderly about this spread. There was nothing about it that was terrible, right? 7 of Swords, could have suggested an increase of agitation, but it doesn't in the context of this question because it goes down from 8, right? And then the 7 really shot up. If you look at the arrow, shot up to the ace. So really, I saw this as the purpose of the 7 was to take us back to this middle row. I saw this as possibly being Taylor Swift, although I think she would have, if it was her, she would have been wearing red. But if it wasn't Taylor Swift, and I didn't think it was, I thought of her because she's a beautiful blonde woman and she's holding the cup, expecting that, her team would win. However, she was wearing green and I couldn't get past that. So I don't think it was her. So she was just this card was just serving as a device to look over here, which got us to look up here. And then, of course, Fortitude, being strength, holding one's own, showing dignity. The game was played with dignity. The theme was, there was no terrible. I mean, both teams, as far as I was concerned, both teams played with dignity. You know, they played. They showed what they were made of. You know, and they're both great teams. So that's how, in retrospect. See, in retrospect, one of the ways. Let me flip the camera. One of the reasons why I think it's insightful to go back and look at your readings to see where you messed up or what you didn't see or what you got right, because it gives an opportunity to learn new ways that those cards could have been applied. Case in point, the Tower. It was a shakeup. It wasn't some terrible thing that was going to happen. There were no other cards in the spread that said anything terrible was going to happen, and I did point that out. But it didn't occur to me to say it was a shakeup. A shakeup, all right, of the reigning heroes. And also the Empress being the person in power. Right? I should have seen this when I did the reading. I said, we have to get over seeing the Empress as just a female energy. We have to see her as being a person in power in her own right, which is, I think, what she represented. Because in that row, he was exerting himself as the person in charge. That was his purpose for being there. So I hope this reading made sense to you. I'm going back to bed. Thank goodness for Theraflu, yay. And until next time, friends, peace, stay well, and be kind.